Welcome to Curious Joel, a show about curiosity, taking us deeper into the topics of people's passion and interesting conversation. I'm your host, Joel Serco. Today, my guest is John Pilat-Baxter. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty fantastic. So, what is your passion that we're talking about today?
Probably what you want to talk about, I think, is my passion for the law.
Okay.
I have, I would say I have a lot of things that I would think would fit that answer. But the thing that comes to mind that ended up me figuring out my passion for the law is my passion for learning new things.
Okay.
I
Something
always
that I am very keen on.
always want to be trying to find something else, and like in my downtime, even on the toilet or something, I'm just like scrolling and reading up on something I've never heard about. So, but that is what is so fascinating about law, is that law is always changing. Law has a lot of historic bases, and so on.
Okay. So you said it goes to the law. What is your actual job?
Including title and where I work, or just what I do? I'm a lawyer.
You're a lawyer, but there's a little bit more than that. That's what I want to get at a little bit. Is you're a lawyer, but you have a very specific job that you do.
I'm an assistant attorney general with the state of New York. There's a lot of offices statewide that all fall under the agency title, the Office of the Attorney General. And Syracuse has one of those locations. Basically, my title is like a line attorney for the under a way many layers of the attorney general. And what I do on a daily basis is represent the state of New York in defensive cases where they are being sued. And recently I have transitioned to and claims, that's like the term, but recently I've transitioned into medical malpractice claims, because that's kind of become my bread and butter since I got out of law school, is learning medical malpractice and defense of physicians and nurses and things like that. So, and how that falls into that government agency situation is any state employees who are doctors, PAs, nurses. The hospital in Syracuse, upstate, is a government run facility with state funding. And so when cases come out of there, it's my job to defend them.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about that journey from I know what I want to do, like how you said you learn things, and then, well, there's a lot to learn in the law. There's a pretty large gap there. Let talk us through that.
If I may, a lot of times how I just communicate is like making sure I understand through asking you questions too. So are you saying like, how did I get there?
Yeah, like in law. Like what was the path? Like what step by step, kind of like take us on a journey.
Okay. So something that we talked about in our icebreakers there was people that are politically successful. One of the first things I remember in getting towards where I wanted to go professionally was becoming enthralled 20 years ago or so in politics and elections, American history.
Okay.
And having an interest in government service, in the idea of maybe someday running for office. Now, we don't really have to talk about this, but the way that the politics are today has sort of jaded that opinion. But basically, I started really enjoying like social studies, history, the law, judicial stuff like the Supreme Court, all that, the American presidency, and learning all about that. So I was like a social studies nerd in high school for sure. So then I I was involved in like student government in school, and it was just, I was kind of framing my path in a service type of way. And I get into college. I went to Elmira College down in the southern tier of New York, and it was a very small liberal arts college. I did political science and economics, and again, always thinking like future service, maybe running for office someday,
Mm-hmm.
learning those types of things. And I went along, and one of the most influential people in my life is my stepmother, who's very professionally successful. She
Okay.
goes, what are you going to do with your life? Like, are you going to, like, political science? Like, what do you really do with that? Are you going to be a teacher? Are you going to be a professor? Are you going to run for office? Like, what is that? What is your goal there?
Yeah.
She goes, and I had never really thought about a lawyer. There's not, there's not much, there's no lawyers in my family.
Mm.
It wasn't something I ever really thought seriously about, but like she just like, I guess, had that like thing that was like a light bulb for me, where I started looking into it, and I'm like, the practice of law sounds very interesting. And maybe if I ever did want to run for office someday, having a law degree is if you look at the trends of who are politicians, a lot
Right.
of
I
them
was
are.
like, I mean, just right off the top of my head, like one of my favorite presidents, Abraham Lincoln, went from practicing law to
Yep.
presidency. So it's a fairly easy
Yep.
jump that way. Yeah.
So I, this is like going into my last year of college. The summer before that, I think I really started digging into it and being on board with it. I also, around the same time, or no, wait, no, I'm going to fast forward on that one. But
Okay, no worries.
that was I thought I got confused, and I guess I'm getting so old now that like time's blurring a little bit. But eventually, there became an interest in military service too.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
that's in between in my last year of law school.
Gotcha.
I'm back in my last year of college that I'm
Mm.
thinking about. Okay, law school, that makes sense. That's what I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I did it, and I got into, I went, did the LSAT, and all the craziness that goes into getting into law school was a lot, and it was draining, and it's expensive. But yeah, got on that, and then get into law school, and your first year is all doctrinal classes. That's like learning about constitutional law, personal injury called torts, contract law, business law, criminal law, and the history behind that. And it was
Mm-hmm.
so fascinating to me. Um,
Really quick, it's just for
yep.
people that might not know what this is. I want to make sure that I understood what you meant by this. You said doctrinal. What does that phrase mean? Or was that what you described afterwards?
It's basically a spin on the word doctrine. So like,
okay.
Black letter. The other, I'm gonna have to try to think not like a lawyer here, but it's like, I feel like probably the comparison is like a medical student has to learn the basics of practicing medicine, and
Right.
like there's the basics of law,
Right.
the doctrines of like
the
basically
pillars, basically.
pillars of criminal law, the Constitution,
okay.
all that.
I would figure that's what you were describing. I just wanted to make sure that it was, because that's something I always make sure that people listening aren't going like, I have to look that word up, don't I? So perfect. So you the first year is basically the basics. Mm-hmm. It's law 101. It's what are the different pillars of law, and then okay, go ahead and continue.
So then I am enjoying it. I'm along the way trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with so first I get through college, and I'm like, what am I doing with my political degree? Figure out law school. Then I'm in law school, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this degree? I really just put myself into a ton of different experiences that helped craft where I was going to go. I did an internship in bankruptcy and social, a guy that practiced it in bankruptcy and social security stuff.
Okay.
I worked for a attorney that did his whole specialty was appeals. So basically after the trial and it's going up the court system on appeals, and he would do appeals on every different type of law. So that was like, I got to learn a lot of things.
That's cool. I didn't realize lawyers could specialize in just appeal.
Yep.
That's cool. Okay.
I worked for I did some public service stuff. I worked for a local legal aid, which is basically low income, like free government government funded legal services for low income people. And in that job, I worked with victims of domestic violence and people that were going through really crazy family situations, basically like representing someone who's like dealing with like their kids, like keeping them away from like the abuser, or
Yeah.
divorce through that process, basically
Those are,
family law
yeah,
disputes and things.
those
So
are really important roles.
yes,
Yeah.
and you and your audience might not know that if you kind of like, a lot of people I think know that a person charged with a crime, if they cannot afford, there is a constitutional
Right.
requirement for that in the Sixth
Yeah.
Amendment, but there is also a lot of legal services that can be provided for low income people in other issues like landlord tenant disputes, family law, bankruptcy, basically any matters that uh, ha- regularly happen to.
Right, kind of the basics of living that you
Yep.
need to be covered, but you don't have,
Yep.
because I anybody
The
that's ever
needs.
watched a show with a cop in it has heard the Miranda rights, and like, if you can't afford one will be assigned to you. It's like, but it's good to know that that's actually available for people in situations that it's not just criminal. It's like, hey, I don't have money for a lawyer. Why? Well, because the landlord's gouging me, and we barely have a roof over our heads. Well, most of a roof over our heads, but so that's good to know that that people can get help, legal help with those situations, even if they can't afford that a lawyer.
We can have a lot of debate over the usage of taxpayer dollars, but that is one that I think that a lot of people, if they were just polled on individually, do you think that people of low income status should be able to get legal services if they need it? I think a lot of people would agree with that. So
I feel like the people that wouldn't would be the people on the other side of
probably,
the landlords and such that are doing all those things. Like, yeah, don't help them. We got this. So yeah, usually well, nope, forgot that word. Not the victim, the perpetrators would probably be the ones that would probably. In fact, that'd actually be a good way to find out. Just like, hey, you don't think they should? Let's dig into your background really quick. Sorry, they were. December was just watching the episode of The Office where they're trying to figure out who like was the whistleblower in like the printers that exploded and stuff like that, and the owner is like, well, when I was a prison guard, what we do is we'd ask, what should we do with the person that was caught? Like, what should we do with the person that actually did this? And if they say, come down hard on them, that shouldn't be allowed, they're usually fine. If they say, hey, we should probably lean with them, 9 times out of 10, that's the person that should bunk you after check. And it's like, and I'm like, I can't really argue with that, but sorry, really random sidetrack. But yeah, that'd be a great one. Is like, just poll who deserves these rights. Oh yeah, don't give them those rights. Like, you have some land that you own and lease to people, right? It's like, yeah. It's like, how are they doing? They actually left yesterday. Actually, don't check on them at all. But okay, so you help with that. That's amazing. I feel like that's also very rewarding work to do, right?
That was probably my favorite of those internships, because it felt like the most connected to an individual client, where I was helping. Actually, I would say that there was a few of those positions that I had that and which maybe reflects on something I was interested in, which was just helping individual people and their legal needs, like the Social Security bankruptcy. It was for the people. It wasn't for like the government that was defending against people getting more money in Social Security. It was the people trying to get it. I tried to find out a lot of different opportunities. Really, there wasn't like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that as I'm going through law school. There are people like that, and that's fine.
You kind of had a moosh boosh of things. You just kind of like tasted the whole smorgasbord of like, hey, but it seems to me like you do have in this conversation. What you've talked about is you do have a propensity towards like the underdog. Like you like helping those that can't really help themselves. And I don't know if you notice that yourself as you're going through this, but as you're talking about it, everything's about like the victim of this, the people that can't help themselves in those situations.
And then eventually we'll get to where now I work for the state. I feel like I can't say that so much, but I can spin a lot of things, and I'll get to that one. But so I guess to continue the path towards where I am today, I get through the law school and I do other things like where I find interesting things through school, like being in oral argument, like competitions and things. I learned
Mm.
when I worked for the guy that did the appeals. I really found that I really like appellate practice. It's like a lot of people think of the lawyer as the one that's like in trial or something, and what you see on TV and stuff. The appeal stuff is more. Um, I think so. If I could like characterize trial
Yeah,
practice versus
sure,
appellate practice, it's trial practice is like one. There's a lot of work in it. You have to
sure.
prep a lot, but it's like almost putting on a show for a jury. Versus, and
Yeah,
there's you like guide the lay people through the law and the facts of your
yeah.
story, which is very interesting in and of itself.
Hmm.
Appellate practice is um, more on the papers and the record, but a lot more legal research and like learning and like going into nuance of law and evidentiary issues and legal situations.
Right.
And then you're before a panel of judges instead of a panel of jurors.
Oh,
And
okay.
when you're in the appellate court before a panel of judges, to me it's way more nerve-wracking than being in front
Well,
of jurors who like, okay,
I
you're
was
the
just
expert,
I
the
can
judges are the experts.
right. No, yeah. So I mean, there's a whole thing about that with like trial science scientists and stuff like that. One of the shows that I've been watching recently that I've really enjoyed is Bull.
Heard of it.
It pretty phenomenal, but he talks about like it's about the jury. Like at the end of the day, unfortunately, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like with voting. It's like any sort of voting. It's yeah, you could talk about the actual thing, or you could target the people that are there and try and get them to understand. With judges, though, you're sitting there like, okay, so here's this obscure book that you probably haven't heard of on this specific law that was actually ratified in this and blah 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 blah. Here you go in paragraph 17. It does say that this means that that's not admissible, like because you're trying to basically take something that was already stated, already ruled on, and go, actually, I disagree with that. And so you have like an uphill battle that you're fighting, which against the professionals in the industry. So you're not just trying to wow some people and put on a good show. You're trying to convince somebody that already has their mind made up, more or less, because another judge said, "Yeah, no, I agree with this. This is how I'm ruling." And you're going, "No, here's the little tiny little things that actually is wrong with that," and like flip this whole stone over.
And unlike in a trial, the jurors never say anything. When you're in an appellate argument, the judges like they pepper you with questions. It's like
Oh,
you're up there before a lectern, and they all by yourself, and it's like me in front of five judges who are obviously,
that's
and I'm like little old me, and I'm like I'm young and like innocent, and it's like these five people who've been
do they have like
usually
spotlights,
older.
individual spotlights that are just like everything else is black, and then
It could be like that, but it's not. It's not the ones that I've been to, at least.
gotcha.
But you're also like, if there's other arguments that are about to happen, it's like a room of lawyers that are just listening to
Oh,
you, and
geez.
it's like
A room of professionals does not sound fun. Oh gosh. Okay.
so. I'm doing things throughout law school that are positioning me to like, okay, what do I really want to do? Well, then COVID-19 pandemic happens, and
Never heard of it. No.
I graduate. Everyone has like their COVID story, you know what I mean? And
Uh-huh.
thankfully, mine is not really like a health situation or
Sure.
someone that I know was lost or something like that. But graduating law school into the pandemic was complicated. So
Yeah.
I had just moved out of my parents' house. I commuted through law school from my parents' house to law school and was finally ready to just be like, okay, law school's almost over with. I am going to get out of here and start on my own. I do love my brother, but like we both kind of had the same thought of like, let's get out of the parents' house. So 2 weeks later, COVID-19 pandemic hits in March of 2020. This is my last year of law school. We had already had the plan of the bar exam is in July, and like I'm kind of in the middle of trying to find what job I'm going to have. All of that went out the door.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I had to
for
almost everyone, some way it
it
impacted
was
you.
a major change
Yep.
of core of everything. Yeah.
So law school ended up being remote for the last couple of months, and then the bar exam was canceled indefinitely, which is what do I do about that? Like,
that's so, I didn't
and then
realize
kind of
that.
job hunting stopped, you know,
Right.
people
Especially
like,
if you can't pass the ball.
yeah, yep,
That kind of limits, like,
yep.
they just like that just cut off an entire like avenue of people because you're not the only lawyer. That I didn't realize there's like there's gonna be this gap in like people that got their law degree, like past the bar because COVID just like, no, we're not doing this anymore.
Interestingly, it led into like a debate of within different schools and within our school of, do we do like an exception this year? Do we like graduate people and give them the licensure without the bar because of this crazy situation? Well, then it went up to like the higher people in the state of New York and the government and stuff. Some states did do that, some didn't. Some had bar exams, some didn't. Some had, it was in person or not. It was like crazy, like everything else in life. That time. So what we resolved on was it was going to be, because everything was so, I'll just get to the point. Eventually they did it 3 months delayed and it was remote. So I did the law exam from the bar exam from my kitchen in pajamas, you know, which was usually you would go in a suit to like some conference center in like Buffalo or something.
It's a big whole ordeal. It's like like graduating in your pajamas.
Yeah.
Like,
I almost wonder, you know, fate, you know, I almost wonder if like, was this like way more, it was actually, I think, cooler to be able to just do it in the comfort of my own home than have all that stress, you know. And it worked out. So in the middle of that process, it complicated. By that point, I was interested in the military. I had thought about active duty military experience as a lawyer. That got thrown to the wayside because of the whole getting admitted and being a lawyer thing. And thankfully, the guy that I was working for that did appeals was just like, hey, do you like want to still work for me just to like get by?
Very generous.
And I was like, and I liked it, you know. I'm like, yeah, I have like no other real logical opportunities.
I'm so busy right now.
So he offered me a fair salary to start, and was like, just focus on, you know. At that time, I was like studying for the bar and working at night for him. And then once the plan became, well, come be my appeals guy that focuses on criminal appeals. And so that was like the first year of my, and I graduated from the bar, or I graduated from law school, passed the bar on the first try. I got the results like right before Christmas. It was either going to be great or terrible. Holiday stretch there. And then I get, the admissions, the legal field has this quirk where you get the bar exam and pass the bar exam, but then you still have to go through like this interview process of like vetting your background, and like it's called the character and fitness. Like, are you fit to practice law? And it's like that had to take way longer than it normally did because of COVID and interviews. And so what was normally an expedited like 4-month process turned into a year from taking the exam to finishing and getting admitted, and all that impacts your salary and like job prospects, you know, and stuff.
You haven't passed the bar. I'm not paying somebody this much if they don't even have like haven't passed the bar yet. Yeah, wow.
Those loans were starting to kick in, so it was a crazy time, but I figured it out. And so that takes me to, I'm an attorney.
Sure, yeah. So from there, just to kind of finish the journey out, because you're an attorney and you got military somehow. Like, what was that transition from? Okay, you were working appeals, focused on criminal appeals, right? Yep. And then that transition somehow. How did that? What is that transition?
So I, along the way of going through law school and stuff, and this whole arc of being interested in government service, possibly future political aspirations, I don't know. I definitely always had I want to serve somehow. I thought about military. I thought about just public service somehow for working for the government. I thought about being in like a fire department or something. And some friends that know me very well were like, you wear everything on your shoulders, you know, or on your sleeves is the phrase, you know, like, are you sure you want to, and you're kind of emotional, are you sure you want to like go work for volunteer for a fire department and see some crazy stuff, you know, it probably really hurt you like emotionally to go home after that. So I'm like, you're probably right. How do I still find a way to just do something service wise? along that same time, I like became a member of the Red Cross, and my brother joins the military. And my dad had always said, "I think you'd be good for the military." We have some family in the military, but I didn't like grow up as a military brat or something.
Sure.
But my thought was always, that sounds like a really good idea. But I was, very overweight at that time. I wasn't
Gotcha.
a kid who was in sports and was like fit or anything. I was kind of a couch potato kid who played video games and watched sports all day and ate a lot of food and was overweight.
Yep.
So I didn't think I would be able to cut it.
Right. That's a pretty large hurdle
Mhm.
from being someone not in shape to military kind of is a requirement to
It's a
be
part of the
in
job.
shape. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my brother enlists in 2019, and this is when I'm in law school. So trying to figure out all of what I'm doing with my life, and I
Mhm.
see what he goes through, and I see I get exposed. I go to a base, I see his graduation and stuff, and I'm like, this is really cool. This
Mhm.
is something maybe dad had a knack for something with me. And I remember this conversation that I'll never forget with my brother, where I was thinking like, this sounds awesome. I was talking to recruiters, but I was fat. I'll just be honest
Mhm.
with you, um, I said, if I went to talk to somebody seriously about this, what do you think they'll say? Do you think they'll judge me? And he goes, they probably will. And I'm like, okay, tough love.
Yeah,
But
they're
my
not one for beating around the bush and
Yeah,
stuff like
so
that.
my thought was not, oh, well, I guess screw that opportunity. Let's think about something else. I'm like, it was like quite a bit of reflection over a couple of weeks where I'm like, it would really be good for my life in general to get in better shape
Right.
and to eat better and learn how to do
Right.
that. But also, like, screw that. I want to make it happen now.
Right.
That's
It's a
kind of how,
challenge
yeah.
now. Yeah.
So I went off on this side quest of trying to be better at eating and going to the gym and stuff. And I ended up getting into the shape to be ready to try to go into the military. And again, the COVID thing complicated stuff.
Right.
So, but it all kind of intertwines. The guy that I worked for that did the appeal stuff was
Mhm.
a veteran and was
Oh.
like, knew about this back side quest of mine. And like I was working for him when I went to see him and my brother at his base, and
Right.
like was very interested in this. And he was starting to impress upon me his experience in the military way back in like the 70s and 80s, but
Sure.
like how yeah, I should try it. And he was like, at the time I was interested in more in the Navy. But he was like an army guy and my brother was in the army. So like the influences started to think about, why don't you try for the army? Um, and then like COVID happens, that complicates the whole, like, what do I do with my life? I get into a relationship that added on to that.
Mhm.
um, that added on to the complexities of what am I going to do?
Right.
So I also changed jobs from the appeals practice because I just didn't see myself progressing in that office to
Sure.
a place where I wanted to be.
Sure.
So I ended up finding something else, and it was a private practice job where I was working in medical malpractice defense, which is what I do now,
Mhm.
which is representing physicians and nurses when they get sued. And along the way, I'm also pursuing, okay, I want to still serve the country and do this thing, but like not full time. So I got into the reserves. That was a years long process from like 21 to 23.
Oh,
That
wow.
took a lot of steps, a lot of going to medical exams and applications and administrative bureaucracy stuff. It took a while. I think the pandemic had its impacts on that too. Like,
Sure.
so finally I got in as a JAG in the Army, which is the lawyers of the military, um, and ended up going, you know, I think I got into the Navy, the Army, and the Army National Guard. And it was just, what's the best opportunity for me right now? And I went Army Reserves in the JAG Corps locally in Rochester's where I drill out of. And got something I was really looking forward to. I got that a service piece to my life, which is something I was craving all along. At the
Mhm.
time, I'm working for that medical malpractice firm. full time. And then just it was hard to square away the working in a private firm where there's like this term, the billable hour. There's like a grind of
Mhm.
work. Basically, the billable hour equates to your profit for the firm, because it's a private business. So
Right.
there's like requirements of the job to meet certain amounts of time spent during the week. It's not like 40 hours you clock in, you clock out. It's like
Right.
you have to bill a certain amount of time for clients to pay the firm, and so really it's a lot. It's more than 40 hours usually of time spent working, and I was doing fine with that, I thought, but also had
Oh,
the
no.
military as a thing that I needed to
Right.
prioritize as well. So it was just, I was starting to see that in private practice, it was hard to, and a lot of people in the military have this story, that if they don't work for the government, it's really hard for them to work for a private business that has its requirements and timing, and they just don't understand the military and things like that. So I'm like, okay, I kind of like what I do. I kind of like this work of working for doctors and learning medicine, learn new things. The
Mhm.
working in
Yeah.
medical
Yeah. Yeah.
malpractice is very fascinating because I almost get to like learn a lot about medicine.
Right.
Um, and I ended up getting into the attorney general's office in the summer of 24. At that time, I'm already in the military and
Mhm.
drilling, and I'd gone through my training and everything. And really like, okay, I want to be in the military for a while as a reservist, but private practice law is hard to make it work timing wise and still, of course, have like a work life balance and spend time with
Right.
family and friends and everything. So I heard about an opportunity at the Attorney General's office, which is in the same community, where at that time, when I first got the job, it was just general claims. It was basically like similar practice of law, generally like the courts and the
Mhm.
type of things I would do on a day to day basis, but not necessarily the doctor's stuff. But then I kind of did it, I gamed it a little bit and was like, okay, let me get my foot in the door. And then eventually, if the opportunity presents itself, because there's only two people in my office that do what I do now, and
Mm.
I'm like, maybe someone will retire or leave or something. And that it ended up being that, and I grew to like what I was doing in the general
Yeah.
like law stuff. But then the person whose position I took over was promoting internally to be like a manager
Oh.
type of position where he wasn't going to be doing like day to day case law. It was more like political and managerial. So
Sure.
they needed someone to backfill the medical malpractice defense for the state in the Syracuse office. And I jumped right on it, used some of my local friends and resources to get that position. And it's like, I feel like now that's where I want it to be, at least for the relatively long term. You know,
Sure. Okay.
that was a long story.
Hey, that's what we're here for because it's everybody's journey is different. I tell people this all the time. It's like, well, but it's the same old story. It's like it's never the same old story. Everybody has. I could interview 100 different lawyers doing the exact same position that you're doing across the country, and everyone would have a different way they got there. I've had people that they accidentally found like accidentally picked a class that is now their full time job, and it's
I didn't go through law school thinking I was going to be a medical malpractice defense attorney. So it's just like, but now I love it.
yeah.
I love what I do, and the law is pretty settled in that area.
Okay.
But the thing that is interesting is every day is different. Every case is different from a medical perspective,
Right.
and I get to like,
Well, I mean, that's why medical shows are such a big thing. I
yep,
mean, you can, I mean, you can look at House, you can look at Scrubs, you can look at Grey's Anatomy, like all
mm-hmm.
these things. Like, yeah, they have a lot of drama that goes on in them, but they also, there's a million different things that can happen to a person's body that you can go, well, this is why we did it this way this time. Also, well, okay, this one's slightly different because this also happened, and we're trying to figure out why both of those things are indirect. Like, yeah, so like medical shows are a very big thing because every single medical case is a unique case, and then if you start bringing law has to be brought into that, you have to look at why this case is slightly different than every other case.
And let me tell you, like, because I'm a layman when it comes to the doctor stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to think about when I'm reading the medical records, like like as a fan of Grey's Anatomy, I like think of the Grey's Anatomy of this story. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
and then if I told the doctors that, they would probably be like, "Are you serious?" Kind of like when, that's what I think when people tell me they think what lawyers do is based on like Law and Order and those types
Sure.
of shit. You know what I mean? But it's just human nature, I think, to
Well,
have those thoughts. You know?
it's comparative. We always look for similarities and familiarity. I was actually just talking about this phenomenon. There's a name for it. I can't remember what it's called, but it's why we see faces in things, and that's actually the same thing that leads to uncanny valley, like that eerie feeling of like it's almost something. But like that's why we look at clouds and go, "Oh, look, it's a duck," or a smiley face.
I'm a subscriber to There's a Face on the Moon. Every time I look at the
Well,
moon.
yeah, but like people look at outlet, like the three prong American outlets, and go, "Yeah, it's a face." It's kind of shocked, you know.
I never connected it. Like it does look like a face, but I've actually never had that thought. But now
Really?
I'm gonna always have that
Yeah,
thought.
but no, there's so many things that we do that with. Our brains are designed to see connections and put it together. We're very patternistic. But for sort of really quick diversion from this, but that's one of the things that it's so fascinating to me about Uncanny Valley is that a lot of people don't understand why. Is because if it's too close but not perfect, we have this like disconnect. I mean, the most famous one recently was Sonic's human teeth. That they're like, I don't like it. I don't know why I don't like it, but it's because the anthropomorphization of a hedgehog, a blue hedgehog, to a slightly humanoid, and they're like, no teeth, nope, 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 and we bullied an entire company into changing that.
We're gonna have to revisit that after this. I don't know that story, but
Okay, yeah.
I would
Anyway,
like to know that story, and it's probably gonna spook me.
it's fine. But yeah, but Uncanny Valley is something I love a lot because I'm very much pattern driven. But yeah, but people always try and find some common ground. With ADHD, it's something that's very common where people with ADHD will oftentimes tell a story right after somebody to explain, like, I have a similar experience to this than you. And people oftentimes take it as a trying to one-upmanship, but it's not. It's just like, hey, yeah, no, we're closer than you think in this one manner. But humans do that all the time. They're like, oh yeah, I've heard that too. And so it's if your only experience is watching a TV show about this business, then you're gonna go, oh yeah, no, I get it, I know, yeah, you're like, I object, haha, see, yeah, lawyers, I've seen it, but it's something that's irrefutable. I mean, just the fact that I know somebody that is a JAG makes me immediately think of the show JAG, Judge Advocate General, and like I can like picture the theme song in my head and the complex mysteries and things exploding, and I almost guarantee you haven't had to jump out of the way of an explosion, right?
Thankfully not.
Yeah, but like it's something that's it's ingrained in our brain that we have to like we want to connect. And so whenever someone has something, they go, "Here's what the only other material I know is this other thing."
I have been asked, like Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men. You know?
Yeah, yeah. No, I had that more when I was a magician, and people were like, oh, like Chris Angel. I'm like, no, not like Chris Angel at all. But yes, and when you break it down logistically, yes, we are both close-up magicians. We're in very different categories, though. But it's something that people have. Like, if you have something that's slightly out of where people are normally seeing things, they have to have something that they can connect to, and so they always have this like you're like, I wouldn't. No, not really. Not scrubs. Nope. No, that's not how we doctor here. We doctor with like actual, our doctorates that are on the wall.
Yep.
But yeah, that's how we do it. Not that one.
Something that helps me with what I do, and again, every lawyer is different, every doctor, every policeman, you name it. So like I like to like take me there, put me in the situation. Now I can't. It would be inefficient for me to always do that,
Right.
but like because for now I'm going to be mostly dealing with the same institution and the same practitioners there. I was like, let me tour the emergency department. Let me see the operating room. So like when I read these cases and like tell me about because all I read is documentation.
Right.
Just tell me about like how long have you been working that day? Like how many cases have you seen? Like who's in the room with you? Like who's supposed to be doing X, Y, or Z? And like let me see it so that I can relate and think through my head, because eventually I have to tell that story, and I have to take
Right.
on your story of what you were dealing with that day
Yeah.
and all the complications that come with your job that sometimes can unfortunately lead to complications to patient care.
Right. Right. No. And I'm a very similar person with like when I'm trying to help somebody, like, okay, what happened? Like, what was actually happening? Because like, or when people are telling stories about drama in their life, and I'm like, okay, sorry, who is that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't just drop a name in here. You can't be like, oh, and then I reach for the thing. It's like, okay, but how far is that desk from where you're working? It's like, well, it's across the room. It's like, okay, because the way you describe it in your very clinical terms here, you just said you grabbed it, but what you really did was you walked clear across the room and grabbed the thing. Why? Because it's nowhere close to where you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, yeah, I just didn't think that was important, you know.
Mm-hmm. And those little things. That's something as minuscule seemingly as that
Right.
could be like a huge thing, like a timing thing.
I mean,
or like,
yeah.
A lot of times what I tell, like when I meet with doctors, I tell them, you are the expert here of medicine, of
Right.
what imaging do they need, what medication,
Right.
but like I need to know, okay, what are the legal complications here, what's the real story, every little detail, because
Right.
I don't want anything to surprise me for when I'm telling a story.
Right. I'll decide what details are important.
Yeah.
You know, that's a very common thread in the shows that I watch with like law and police work and stuff like that, is like someone's like, well, I just didn't think that was important at the time. It's like, oh, cool. No, yeah. So we have to rethink everything. It's like, why? What does that matter? It matters a whole lot, because what you said was you never took your eyes off of them. But you said you grabbed the thing off the desk. The desk is 4 feet away. You telling me you didn't take your eyes off of them while you walked 4 feet away? I doubt that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, well, but I just grabbed it and came back. It's like, yeah, but you just said. And so yeah, like I am definitely one of those people, like, I need to know what's going on, and like, don't just tell me some random things like that'll throw me off of any book I'm reading, any show I'm reading. That's kind of like, don't give me enough information to work with. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want me to use my imagination, I need to know where things are first, and then we can move on, you know. So I very much can appreciate that like mental work that you put in them. They can make like, give me details, all the details, every detail. How badly didn't you use the bathroom? Like, that can make a difference in this, but you just assuming that you know best is not going to help us. I'm the expert on this. You do your thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't remember if I cut you off.
Okay. I think we were just
okay.
There.
So what were some of the things that, like, because you love to learn new things, but what was something that like might have challenged you, and something that you like might have been a little harder for you to learn in this journey as a lawyer? Like, what was something that like wasn't just like, oh yeah, I learned that, like, I mean, soaking up information, but there's something that like you had to actually like kind of really push yourself to actually like retain that new knowledge?
So law school is not anything like what I do now. And it's so much reading.
Yeah.
I will tell you to this day, I don't like read books. I don't know why, because I really like to learn, and I almost wonder if it's just an attention span thing. Like, do I want to like, thinking out loud, I think I can put a finger on it. I always like to be doing something around the house, or sure. Like I have to be like doing something. So to me, reading a book is like hard to just sit down, and also like if I do it, I want to like not stop.
Right.
So there's probably an overarching psychological thing to that, but like I can't, like, even with a TV show, I don't want to like just read the next chapter or watch the next episode the next day. Right. You know? Okay.
Yeah.
So the arc there is law school is so intensive on the reading textbooks and getting yourself to figure out your studying habits, and like dedicating time to just processing a bunch of material. I struggled oh, no. In high school, in college, I didn't struggle. I skated by and did well by just like, oh, I guess I'm smart. I don't need to study. Like I'll be that not to be like that just didn't
No,
care
no.
as much. Like,
Yeah.
I had partied, I had fun, and I just had enough like
It was easy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then I get to law school, and everyone who got there, it's a process to get into it. You have to take tests, you
Right.
have to like meet a threshold.
Right.
So it's like almost like a comparison to like athleticism, where
Right.
well now everyone's in the same wavelength, and it's who's best now.
Right.
So like I skated by and didn't establish very good habits of a studious person,
Mhm.
and I realized very quickly I'm not gonna cut it if I don't just completely change that. So I
Right.
had to like, and also again coming into the context of someone who didn't really like to read a lot. That's all it was. It was like 100 pages of material every night, and I'm not exaggerating for
Oh,
the
yeah.
first year at least. And
Yeah.
it's like a lot more like to me it felt like a lot more learning on my own than like lectures for an hour was like just a summary of everything that like you have to learn all that on your own and then bring that knowledge to class
Yeah.
essentially. And then there's this interesting, like as like a side note, but then there's like this interesting thing in law school of it's the Socratic method, and it's the what really happened was you had to come to class, you knew what was on the syllabus, you had to read 46 pages and 10 like which was covering like 10 cases the night before. You have to
Mhm.
go to class, and now every teacher had a little different way of doing it, but it like the common example is the professor could whip open a flashcard with your name on it, like the class of 80 people.
Mhm.
They could pull out from a card, Mr. Pilot, tell me about the Smith case that you read last night. And obviously you have to have done it. You can't
Right.
like remember before in college I was like reading whatever.
I can figure it
I
out.
can do the homework without reading the textbook.
Right. Yeah.
But it was like, so tell me about the Smith case. And it's like very general like that. Or it's like someone would be very general and like tell a story almost. And someone would be like, so Mr. Pilot, what was the holding of the Roberts case from 1962,
Mhm.
and which judge, like, yeah, it was very
You had like it could
on
be
the spot
the
testing.
summarization, or it could be
Yeah.
pull this specific detail right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had to be ready for any of that. There's a point though of why they do that, and we've already talked about it. But it was like, whoa, like a whole new world, and I was either gonna flounder or I was gonna figure it out. I
Mhm.
was never like now I feel like I'm not someone that I would say among the lawyer crowd is someone who's naturally very smart. I don't feel like I walk into a room of lawyers and I'm like, I'm the intellectual. Like I will work hard.
Right.
That is that was like a change in life through that process. Is like there will never be a day where I'm not reading all the cases and I know them like the back of my thumb.
Right.
Honestly, at first it was just because I was like afraid, like of a social situation where it happened, like for some people, where they just it was either they didn't do it on purpose, or maybe they just didn't like life happened to them the night before, but the professor didn't care. It was like, oh,
Right.
and it wasn't, you never got in trouble, but it was like, you didn't want to be that guy for a class of 800 people that didn't know the case, and the professor would sometimes be conniving in what they would say to you about it, and
Yeah.
go like,
Well,
screw you then.
I think to be fair, they're also like the judge doesn't care, the jury doesn't care that you had a rough night. Like
there it is.
And
you figured it out.
But it's one of those things like, you could be like, yeah, my mom died. It's like, great. Anyway, you didn't convince me about this guy. It's like, but.
Yep. So there was kind of where the through line there I was talking about is we had already talked about how intense it is to be in front of a judge,
right.
A panel of judges who probably know the law and the case better than you know your own case.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, or they think about things that you hadn't even thought of.
Yeah.
And so that's like, while lawyering every day is not reading 100 pages of textbook material, it's
retention,
knowing little nuances, or being able to imagine what someone else might be thinking.
So I just had a weird image of like, this is like being a nerd, but with like serious stuff, and then also being able to write fan fiction about that, whatever like fandom. It's because like you have to have like these like, well, but in this one comic issue, he actually does mention this. It's like, what? It's like, yeah, pink kryptonite's a thing. And read your stuff, man. But then you also can't just do like what's actually been written. But you also have to write quote unquote fan fiction about what could possibly be outcomes of things that haven't happened yet. But that weird image popped into my brain.
No, and there's a through line there too, is like some of the things that you do learn over the course of writing a lot in my job, or reading like judges who are fantastic writers, is you want to portray the story in an interesting way to a reader that is an intellectual, but also is going to shape their, you're doing so much. You're like, I want them to enjoy this story that I'm telling about my case where my doctor was in the emergency department or something, and something went awry, or maybe it didn't. I want the story to be interesting. I want it to be legally accurate, factually accurate, and also persuasive. And so like every little word is like very important in like shaping the way it's going to be received. And like you want to be persuasive and interesting, and and it's just like writing a story for a comic or a fictional story. Like I'm sure the authors of those things go into every little word.
Yeah, you have to get the continuity of the entire story right, because just randomly throwing out something like metachlorines in an episode of a movie series, not to be named right now, and everyone going, I'm sorry, what? What did you say? What? Sorry, go back. Yep. It's like, yeah, Peter Parker drank the ooze. It's like, what? No, he got bit by a spider. Dang it. Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure I'm right. He drank something, right? But no, like you have to have the continuity. You have to be engaging. You also have to be accurate to the character. You can't just have, a character just all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, by the way, I think I'm really cool. It's like, no, that's never been a part of you. You don't think you're really cool, actually. You think of yourself as a nerd, So you have to be engaging, accurate, and follow through with everything else that's led up to that. It's a wildly accurate analogy now that I think about it.
As we're talking here, I can think about it from the perspective of authoring books, music, a whole bunch of even writing like textbooks. You never know. There's just so much part of human life is storytelling,
Right.
Podcasting, even you could say, like the arc of a podcast is even something that you could put into that. But and what we don't see is, in my perspective, it's like the lawyer writing the brief or something, or like the musician writing the song, the author writing the book. Is
you see the performance.
You see the final product. You don't see the person that's receiving it doesn't see the nights where somebody's in a room like this and like the author is like Xing out the whole transcript like 100 times, like what was I thinking, and like and I'm having a bad day and my kids are crying in the background. Like that stuff applies to everything that we do.
Yeah. No, people don't think of the tortured artist like as being a lawyer. They're like, yes, the tortured lawyer artist. But this is something that I like about doing this podcast. This is the stuff that I like to get. Is like people don't talk about this. People think of lawyers like, I read a book once in a library really quick for this thing, and then I put it in my notes and I threw it in a manila envelope, and then I put it on the table and I threw it like Exhibit A, and and it's like, and then I won the case, and everyone was super cool about it, and like, I walked off like I was a boss, and it's not like, I read like 75 different books, and I couldn't find the thing I was looking for, and nothing was backing up what I wanted, and then I had to write it down in a way that actually made sense.
Yep.
Didn't lose half the people that I'm supposed to be persuading, but also the judge knows that I know what I'm actually talking about. But I like that imagery of like the tortured artist being a lawyer just prepping for his case tomorrow.
Sometimes there is some of the fun silliness to it though, because like I can think about I've only done a few trials at this point, and in one of them it was in the most boring area of law that I hope I'd never really have to do ever again, but it was to get an experience of a trial.
Sure. Yeah.
Just to set like I'll kind of spark notes it a little bit. There is a legal field of when the government seizes your property, what is done about that. So it actually has a basis in constitutional law. It's called eminent domain. And it's like the government is the king. And even though I guess we're not, like, we come from like Britain, and like
Right.
we're not supposed to be doing that. But the thing that the American creators came up with was like, okay, well, the government may need to take somebody's land, but like they're not just going to take it and not do anything. So the constitutional law, the Fifth Amendment, most people think the Fifth Amendment has Miranda rights. There's also a whole bunch of other things, including the government can't take your land without just compensation. Because in
Yep.
England, the king used to just take the land and be like, screw you, and figure out your house, and we're going to demolish
Yeah.
it, and
It's
whatever.
like, I need a new garage. Go away.
The government now can still do that, but they have to put it on notice. They have to like give you time to prepare. They have to like pay you for it. But sometimes, and a lot of times in my world these days, and working for the state, it's like these like taking and building new highways and things, and like seizing land to do that. A highway is a good thing, but like it's a huge development. It costs a lot of money.
Right.
So I was, my boss was like, okay, you want a couple of trials? Why don't you work with the guy that does like this whole thing called eminent domain stuff? And it's a great way to get trial experience, and no one really ever really wants to do it. So
it's
let's
the grunt work of
Yeah.
cases.
So it was a whole battle of like valuing the land and like millions of dollars of difference of the sides. And it was like
Right.
the guy whose land was taken, he wanted a lot more money than the state wanted to give.
Obviously. Right. He's
So-
like, no, I think it's worth less than that. Give me less money.
Yeah. It's really, it seems like a silly endeavor, but
Right.
it's what the job was.
Right.
So
you're trying to basically negotiate kind of where both the state and the owner kind of can agree on, yes, I think the land's worth this and we're willing to pay this. Yeah.
So the reason this one went to trial is because a settlement could not be made, and it was like a difference of $5 million, and that's a lot.
Geez.
So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now we need the judge to decide here because we can't figure it out. So it had experts in it and like stuff I'd never even thought about, like appraisal of land and like engineering and stuff. And one of the attorneys, or one of the experts for the other side, the plaintiff, the guy that had the land, his attorney had demonstrative exhibits that were like Google Maps imagery of parking lots. And there's like apparently a whole bunch of value that goes into like, did you lose a certain amount of parking spaces for your property, for your businesses that you rent out to? And that's a dispute of potentially millions of dollars if you have to like readjust like the parking lot structure, and like, you know, people might leave the property because they're like upset the consumers taking your the businesses that are operating there. So the attorney thought he was like doing very well with his Google Map, was one of those cartoonishly large blow-ups of a thing. And the expert was using his laser pointer. Using his laser pointer to be like, basically like skirting around the fact that like they were really exaggerating the amount of parking spaces that were being lost. And we didn't have like blow-ups or anything, but I said, hey, do you mind if I put that back up? Which you usually wouldn't like want to use their exhibits.
Right.
But I'm like, I noticed, I'm like, he's like really missing, or he's trying to make the case that they like couldn't use this whole like significant amount of acreage to fix the issues.
Right.
And is like laser pointing around and not like, and the judge it's one judge who doesn't know anything. Like this judge is not like, he was an immigration background, like doesn't know anything about
this. Isn't his field of like purview.
So he's probably thinking like, you know, it's what this guy must be. He's an expert on this stuff. And I'm like, let me pull up that thing. And I felt like
wait a minute,
I retrieve it, I pick it up, and it's like, it was one of the, you know, it's this most boring area of law, but I'm kind of like having fun. And the attorney I was doing the case with, I didn't like tell him I was going to do this, but I'm like, this was a cross-examination. So I retrieved the giant cartoonishly large exhibit, and I said, do you remember on your direct examination when you were using your laser pointer to like show us where you could fix the property issues that come up because of the state's appropriation of the land? How about, okay, so put your laser pointer, I was telling him to do what I wanted to, like I was using him. I'm like, okay, put the laser pointer back up there. So you were talking about all this part over here, right? Yeah. Okay. Like, how about you move the laser pointer like 6 inches, and like, what about all that part over there? And he goes, he conceded. He's like, oh,
Well, that's my
that was
favorite.
that was a classic cross-examination
Yeah.
moment. It wasn't like, did you have the knife on the night of
Right,
the murder?
but having someone turn mid cross-examination to like, actually, yeah, no, you got a point there.
And that was an issue that turned possibly millions of dollars.
Right. I mean, that's really cool, actually.
So it's like, it ended up being the most boring thing I hope I never have to do again, but like I learned some craftsmanship.
Right, yeah, that's really cool.
And the attorney, that very seasoned attorney who was like my mentor through that trial, was like, I wouldn't have done that. So, all right, cool.
You got your one good punch in there. That's really cool. Okay.
I never told that story either. I probably never will again.
Oh, it's such a cool story. At least I thought it was a really cool story. Let's see. So you talked a little bit earlier about like billable hours and stuff like that. And one thing that I know from a lot of their jobs is that the amount of time that you're paid for your job versus the actual time that you actually spend, whether on the clock or not. I talked about this a lot with being an activity director, is that I go home and I'm going, okay, but if we just do this differently, like brain just automatically goes, how much time would you say on a like a daily basis do you actually spend working, like both on and off the clock, like on a regular basis?
So working in the government, the expectation is it's at least 9 to 5.
Okay.
Like that's when the office is open and that's when you should be there. But it has pros and cons of working in the government, where like, okay, sometimes like it's very well understood that it's a great place to work for work-life balance.
Sure.
So it's like some days I might be like, I have something that I have to attend to and like leave at 3. And sometimes I'm working until midnight because a case is due, assignment is due the next day, and I like life got in the way or other work. And so like probably on a daily basis, I would still average it out to like 8 hours, I guess. But there are times where I am working, I typically work 40 hours. So like 70 hours because of just the needs of the job, or like making up for time spent. And that's like actual on an assignment, emailing, telephone calls.
Right.
If you add into that, like just thinking about things, or like sometimes I'm even in bed and like, I heard a new case came out today. I want to go like look at what that.
Right. That's kind of what I'm talking about, because like I know like one of the prime examples of this is teachers, about like the amount of work teachers put into the job versus what they actually get paid for, whether they're asked to or not. Like there's a lot of time that goes into it. So like you said, like that. Oh wait, I'm gonna read this new thing.
Yeah. I
could get paid for this technically if I really wanted to, but right now is when I'm doing it. I don't care if I get paid for it. I'm just doing it. Yeah.
There's definitely some of that where I could like average out my hours and see what the hourly rate of that is if it was imagined that I was just working 40 hours a week, not a lot. Like this morning, I was doing work that was unpaid because I'm getting ready for maybe something that we'll talk about, which is a deployment where I have to kind of position all of my cases to be taken over and not screw people over. I'm at least self-policing that myself. Sure. I don't want people to have to do my work and have it be like all over the place. So I'm kind of doing a lot of extra hour tough stuff. I know on Tuesday night I'm working until at least 8 o'clock because I know that there's something I have to do on Wednesday that I have to be ready for. So there's a lot of time that might be unpaid.
So on a regular basis, you said typically it's like an 8 hour day, but like accounting for all those things that you just kind of do because it's something you like to do. Like how much would you say I should put into it on a regular like basis, like daily? Would you say it's like closer to like 10 hours, 12 hours, 8.5?
It's really hard to average it out because, and one of the things I was thinking as you're saying that is every field's a little different, where like I am definitely not in like a clock in, clock out environment. I am expected to be at the office at least, there's some like work from home opportunities and stuff, but at least 3 days a week. But it's not like it wouldn't be it would not be unknown if you were scamming the system. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because I get these case assignments and like I have to do whatever it takes to defend them, whether that's barely anything and it's easily gets dismissed at some point, or there's cases that I have to think about almost every day, and the attorney on the other side is like more zealous or more annoying or whatever. So like I might have to respond to emails on the weekend, or might have to do a motion on the weekend,
Right.
like I did this morning. Um, so it's really and it's not like a job where it just like is you deal with like I think of like my brother as a mechanic. He goes into work and has a certain number of tasks that he has to do that he can then clear off his calendar and like it's done.
Right.
Cases are things that go on for so long and can be like a year long or even 5 years long. So it's kind of like just picking up where does it go to when. So it's hard to think about.
A little too amorphous to
Yes.
actually average out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fine too. I do like the peek behind the curtain with that. But yeah, but too amorphous is totally fine as an answer. Just like it varies way too much to actually do that math, I guess. Okay. So, and then you kind of went over kind of what a day in life looks like. You know, it can be a lot, or it can be like, yep, just gonna look at this paper really quick. Yep, sure, yep, cool, we're good. Okay. What does a bad day look like for you? Like in the like thinking about like a day in the job, we kind of talked about what a good day looks like. Of just like those like having those aha moments, having those like I figured out the thing. But what does like a bad day look like?
And it's at work, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Typically, one of my problems that I've learned, and to the context is like I'm still sort of figuring out what am I as a lawyer? What is my approach?
Right.
And that's a growing process over the course of your career. I have this problem personally and professionally where I tend to wear things in my sleeve too much and get too emotionally bothered sometimes by things. Yeah. So I can think of very recently some times where I let stuff just absolutely ruin my day, where attorneys were just probably doing what their way of attorneying is, lawyering is, but it gets under your skin. It has almost sometimes nothing to do with like the actual facts of the case. It's how they want to try to persuade you, or
their approach to whatever it is that they're
doing it unusually, or doing it like, oh, we like I kind of there's a way of doing it, but like they're like out of left field, or also sometimes even just making it personal. That can be really bothersome and annoying. And I had this attorney that I never worked with before. A lot of the attorneys in this area that do the medical stuff, I see them a lot. Right. But there's sometimes where we get like a rare case where it's like sued from Long Island or something, like, or Plattsburgh, somewhere far from here in the state that like we don't see them a lot. And so like they might have a different way of doing it. That's like not the way the Syracuse community of lawyers does. That's a thing. The local community of the way of doing things.
Kind of like a local lawyer accent. Kind of thing.
So like you're used to the same guys and girls that do it the way that everyone has grown to do it.
Right.
So you'll get some like weird things where I then have to reflect. I had an attorney from down in New York area that she just completely spun choices that I was making that were just strategic or logistic choices of how we were doing the case to I must have been playing games with her, and like she was like, I'm so important, and like you canceled something the day before, and the reality was because I knew it was going to go nowhere, I didn't want to waste our time. But she kind of took it to court. Well, we had a court conference that was scheduled to like, okay, where a lot of cases that when you go to trial, it's like the judge wants you to, the lawyers on each side, okay, what is not in dispute here? What can you agree to?
Right.
And there's a fair amount of stuff that usually can, like the medical records don't change, the where people live, like basic facts and stuff. So like we stipulate to all this. Here's what's really in dispute, judge. Here's what would go to the jury. Well, she would, I like agreed to a lot of things that technically I could have possibly disputed for her case,
Right.
but I'm like, just being like, the way that we do it is like stipulate to a lot of the stuff that just it's going to get, the judge is
It's
going to
kind
do it
of on the
anyway.
wayside. It's not important.
Yeah.
Let's get to the core of what's actually going
So I
on.
was like, yeah, I'll stipulate to all that. And then it was like me trying to get in my basic stuff and some potentially objectionable stuff that usually would the judge will decide in your favor anyway. So it's
Right.
like, why are we even bothering?
Right. It's pointless to get into this, but I'm assuming they were kind of. She was like, no, we're no. This
Give
is
an
all.
inch. I keep this is what I've been saying to characterize this lately. Give an inch and take a mile. I think like
Yeah.
she's like, oh, I'm not going to make it easy for him at all. And actually, well, he chose to give me all basically. Like, this is how she wouldn't say it this way, but it's
Right.
like, oh, it was his choice to let me have X, Y, and Z and not argue about
Right.
it. So like,
Yeah,
why do
'cause
I have to be that way for him?
culturally, it's a let's get to the actual real meat of this
Yeah.
lawsuit, whatever. And she wanted to go nitpick through everything.
And then
Gotcha.
once I figured that out, I'm like, oh, actually, then we're not going to do the nice way. So I actually then made myself have a lot more to do because the court was like, they actually were like, the court was kind of on my side, and they're like, no, you still have to figure out where you can stipulate and come to an agreement on things, even though she was trying to like go into a bunch of diatribes about we're not going to get anywhere and we should just everything should be in
diatribes.
Going off on a tangent.
Okay, sorry,
like,
I was not.
That's all right. I have a certain way of talking.
That's okay.
Just,
I
think it's lawyerly, honestly.
So it's okay. I use a lot of time to try and use less vocabulary just for other people's sake, so I understand that. But that's why one of the things I try and do is make sure that anybody listening can understand what's going on. And when something goes over my head, I assume it's going over most of everybody else's.
My husband and I have this issue almost every day with the way that I say certain things, and he's like, well, "What the heck does that even mean?" Because sometimes I won't shut off work, and I'll come home, and he's like, "What is it?" He would say, "What's a diatribe?" Like,
yeah, no, I have moments in the morning when I'm working with a coworker from Turkey, and so I try very hard to make sure that I'm using more common vernacular, and every once in a while I'll say something, and she goes, "I'm sorry, what is this?" I'm like, okay, so it's a slang term based off of an old etymology of this other thing, and it's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use that word.
Well, here's a human connection, small world. My husband also just told me earlier this week that he has a new coworker from Turkey where he's also struggling how to communicate things about his job with him. So
that's wild.
Stuff happens, right? But it's like you wouldn't have thought that there was like it was someone specifically from Turkey that was new to the job.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this attorney is like all of a sudden she said she lied. She told the court that all the certain things that I had been doing were games and was like essentially saying I was a liar in front of the court. And I'm like, I was stunned by this because this would never happen in the local crowd. Like, and I'm like in the moment losing my mind. And I think the judges and the judge and the clerk for the court were like, probably also like, what?
Where are you going with it?
Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't know that I was going to have to,
defend something you're just kind of just doing normally.
And so then this was arguably one of my least favorite days of working in the practice of law ever. And it was like less than a month ago. So then she basically disparaged me to the court for something that had an easy explanation that I don't have to get into the specifics of it, but so then I said, and sometimes when you are going to, for the case, tell the judge something that you might think might piss off the other attorney, you might tell them ahead of time, hey, I'm just doing this because I have to work hard for my client. It's not because I want to screw, because you have to have those connections, which I'm used to in the Syracuse crowd. What I do, like you're like,
well, actually, I don't care so much this time.
This person is like, oh my God, she played a character where between me and her, she was like chill. And then to the court, it's like, oh, I'm going to tear you apart. And personally. Yeah. So I was like, oh my God. So I almost never email someone and like vent and say, how dare you, essentially. But I did. And she did not receive it very well and just made it worse. And thankfully I like had people copied into it, or were like other
Mm.
people that work on the case with me are like seeing what's going on, and they're like texting me like, how could she do that? Like, good for you for sticking up for yourself, but like it didn't really. I don't think she gets it. So I'm
Good
like,
work, but good job.
I'm like, okay, I guess now I kind of just know what I'm dealing with though. Like,
Right.
and it's just expect the worst from her.
Right.
And hopefully it's this one case and I never have to see her again. And
Yeah.
I get to deal with my regular
Yeah.
Syracuse people who, even on the other side, the plaintiff lawyers that I work against, typically you'll get that, oh, hey, I just have to do this because it's for my case. But like, you know, I know you're a good attorney and like, I'm not doing this to like tear you apart.
Right.
So
it's just I have to get this case through a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you just both work on the same, like, okay, this case should be settled or something. Okay, let's both work hard to get to the same place and like
But she just had her own personal war to fight.
And some attorneys and colleagues even would say like, oh, I wouldn't have really let that get to me, but it did to me because I would never think to like actually tell the court that someone's like make up a story to try to make them look bad as a professional.
Right. And it kind of hits different. It's insulting on a personal level. It gets under your skin.
Yeah. I can see you working hard for your client versus you just trying to one up the other attorney.
And that's kind of like the scummy lawyering that people think of oftentimes when they conjure ideas of lawyers is that like greasy, like, okay, why would you do that? You didn't need to do that. There's no call, that's uncalled for. You know, to use, oh nope, hold on. Yep, there you go. I was like, I have a football term, and I was like, I don't have a football term. I do have a football term, and then unnecessary roughness. You know, like it's like this didn't help you at all. This didn't do anything towards anything. This was just you wanted to tear me a new one really quick, and then see if that would help at all. Yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah,
not fun at all. Were there any skills? It's a little different than what you learned, but like, were there any other skills that kind of like you needed that you didn't have as a lawyer that you had to build up besides just the retention?
Being able to think on the fly and make decisions quickly.
Yeah,
definitely something that I try to work on every day. I typically reflect a lot and think deeply and like to take a lot of time, but like in the courtroom especially, or if you're before your client and they ask you things you're not expecting or whatever, you do have to think about being comfortable making quick decisions.
Yeah, because you know, if you object too late, or if you stumble and misspeak at some point, you have to be very quick on your toes. And or if your client asks you a question and you're like, then you look not as safe and secure as you did before.
I wouldn't say this was something I didn't know how to do, but going off of that is like I've definitely become way more comfortable as I get further into adulthood of just being okay with accepting that you don't know and saying that. Sometimes you get as much credibility from, and I think in the context of the judge or your boss or in the military, like people that hire leaders in the military than you, if you just tell them, or a client, I don't know the answer to that. I'm willing to look it up, or if it doesn't need to be, like, we can move on and just accept that I don't know that stuff, or like give me some time to get back to you, is gets you a lot more than trying to make up an answer, which some people do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is something that a lot of people are not okay with, is going, I don't know. I don't have that answer currently. Because I feel like a lot of people think that makes them look stupid or, you know, incompetent or something like that. But I'm of the persuasion that knowing what you don't know is very valuable, and that also shows that you're willing to learn something versus I've got everything already.
I can think of a through line already. As you remember early on in the conversation, I said I never walk into a room and think I'm smarter than everyone else. That's where I learn how very often I have to say, I don't know anything about what you just said.
Right.
But like, tell me. Sure, I'll learn. I like to learn new things. So if it's something that I have no idea about, I'm very comfortable. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I just won't say anything.
Sure.
Process it, take it in, or I don't know that answer, but I'm willing to learn and figure it out for you if it's information you need.
Well, I feel like that shows a lot of maturity that a lot of, just quite frankly, adults don't have, of being like, I can still learn. I don't know everything. I'm not perfect, but I'm working on it. You know, I feel like that to me, if someone says something like that, that's comforting. But to show how that can be done very terribly, I can use a doctor that I had once, that I asked him a question. He's like, yeah. Give me a second. And he goes over to his computer, and I see him get on Google. And I think he went on WebMD, and I'm like, I sat there. I'm like, this. Oh my gosh! It didn't help that he had an appearance like Columbo, like disheveled, and I'm like, but I'm like, you're Googling.
You're triggering me as the guy who does medical work. As all.
Yeah, don't worry, I didn't sue him. But like it was unnerving. I was like, you couldn't just say, yeah, I'm not an expert in this area. I'll get back to you. You in front of me turned to your computer, was like, oh, let me just check something really quick. Not like, I'm gonna look. If you at least said, let me look this up really quick, give you an answer right away, whole other ballgame. But saying, let me check something to solidify, quote unquote, your answer, and you're Googling things, that makes me uncomfortable, and I don't want to trust you with anything else, because what else are you gonna, like, are you a doctor? Because instead of saying, I don't know, let me figure it out, or let me check on that for you, let me look that up really quick, because it's not my area of expertise. If I ever see that doctor again, I'm like, no, you're not treating me.
Yeah, I would much rather have the doctor like step out of the room and go talk to like his senior doc or something like that, which I do a lot. And like my office, I like, if you thought of the levels of experience, I'm very low on the totem pole there.
Yeah.
So like, there's a lot of times, even how I've approached this attorney that I was talking to you about. Is this do you see stuff like this? Like, what do you handle it? I'll go run to someone who I trust that's a senior lawyer in the office and be like, what do I do here? What do you think? Because like.
Right.
But like, you would much rather have the doctor do that, or be like, you know what, you're telling me about some kind of issue where I'm just a general practice doc. Like, I think you need to go see a neurologist or something. Like, okay, you think I need more specialty? I'm okay with that. You know.
Right, and it's interesting because in the service industry, in hospitality, we have the exact inversion of that. People look at something that's like working at the front desk at a hotel, and if you tell them something, you don't have enough authority to do something. So we have this, let me ask my manager, which like 30% of the time, let me ask my manager is, let me go into the back really quick. I'm going to sit there for about 5 minutes and then come back out and tell you the same thing that they're going to tell you if I had them come out here. But yeah, my manager said this is actually how it has to work. Unfortunately, I do apologize. It's out of my hands. But because like it's a very weird inversion of that. But you know, yeah, like it doesn't take much to say I'm not fully knowledgeable. I don't know everything in the world. Unfortunately, I haven't read every medical book. I haven't read every lawyer book. I haven't read anything. Let me learn, though. I'll learn this thing. I'll learn this thing as soon as you want me to. And I think that's very a good spot to be in. And I feel like that shows a lack of like inflated ego, you know, versus like, well, you know, that law doesn't apply here at all, and then you just go off and be like, yeah, that's not gonna do anything. Then you go to the court next day going, oh, actually, had I taken a second to actually look that thing up, this wouldn't have been surprising right now. Yeah, so yeah, that's really cool. I never thought of that as a skill of saying I don't know, but I'm here for it.
There's a base knowledge of what you should know,
right?
We can agree on that, yeah. If you're
like Miranda rights, who's that? It's like, oh, need to do lawyer.
I don't practice criminal law, but I know what maybe I can't cite them verbatim, but I know what they are.
If my lawyer looks at me and goes, who's Miranda? It's like, not the one.
Interesting question interesting thing for your audience is, begs the question, I think, is who is Miranda? Why we call it that Do you know what we call that?
So I'm going to give you two different things really quick. One is there's a decent chance that I do know that answer because that is how my brain typically works. Right now, I could not tell you, but I also couldn't tell you half of the things that I know right now as a father with a son that's not sleeping very well.
That's fair.
AKA, I am not sleeping very well. So there's a lot of things that people ask me recently. I've had to give this answer. People's like, I probably do because I am the person that goes, why is it called Miranda rights? Who's Miranda? Like I looked up Sophie's Choice because I'm like, who's Sophie? Why didn't she have a choice? You know?
I actually will admit to you, I didn't know what Uncanny Valley is, and I'm gonna go look up that after this. But I can think about what it is, but I don't.
But no, like this is how my brain works. Is like I'll say something a little too slowly one day. I'm like, we say this way too often. What does it actually mean? Yep. And that's how I found out so many things, random facts that I have of like, just thought about it. Like I posted these one day because I was thinking about it. I couldn't get it off my head, so I posted on my Instagram because I'm like, did you know that the alphabet doesn't actually have to be in any particular order whatsoever? It's just hard to remember if we don't actually have an order to it. There's no logical stipulation of why they're in the order that they're in. We just picked an order so we could actually remember all of them, because if they weren't, we wouldn't have any system for that. But you also can organize, and there is a list of someone that has organized the alphabet alphabetically.
Wow. Yeah. I have so many questions from that, but I'm going to take the opportunity to do two things here. One, you just did what we talked about, which engenders some. You admitted what you. Yeah, you actually. What was interesting. It was like I either don't actually know it or I might know it, but I'm dealing with something in life right now.
Right.
Like you kind of did that. I don't know, but two. Would you like to know why it's called the Miranda rights?
100% would like to know, and I'm sure my audience would like to know too, because they're like sitting on there just going, okay, he said, do you? That usually leads to something else.
So there's a lot of types of rights or legal theories or something that usually have someone's name, kind of like certain mathematical things like Pythagorean theorem, or like I think Occam's razor is like
Occam's razor.
There's always like a name to something. So Miranda rights is typically lawyers will assign the name of the party of the case to something. Right. A lot of law comes from certain cases. So the Miranda rights actually come from a case called the United States versus Miranda. That was a Supreme Court case in the 60s. Don't quote me on that. 50s or 60s, something like that.
Do your own research, audience.
And the criminally charged suspect's name was Miranda. And again, I'm not going to say don't like quote me on the facts of the case because I didn't read it, but I did have to read it in law school once, so I could recite
Where's
it.
Where's that?
But if I'm
retention
here, I could talk through enough of it to get there. It's like the guy did not. They didn't really tell him anything before they were just like, "Did you do this?" You know.
Yeah.
So now it's like you have the right to remain silent. And then there's like a bunch of other rights related to that, the right of counsel and stuff, that the court in the Miranda decision, because the guy that was charged in that case did admit to the crime or allowed a search or something like that when he had no idea what
he didn't know
consequences would have been because the police didn't tell him. They were like, actually, in the decision of United States versus Miranda said, you have to do this. You have to tell them they have a right to remain silent. You have to tell them that an attorney can be consulted before the police get involved. Like you have all those different things that they say in every cop show ever is actually derived, not necessarily verbatim from that case, but the court heavily, the court did outline in like almost like a numerical fashion. You need to say X, Y, and Z so that a person that is at a police stop or in an arrest or something is fully aware of the constitutional consequences of what they may or may not do in that context. Right. It's all called Miranda rights because the guy's name was Miranda.
Yeah. You hearing you telling that story and hearing it kind of jogged my memory a little bit, because I do remember that, like some of that. So I might not have read the whole thing, but I had somewhere I was going with that. I swear I did. Couldn't tell you what that was anymore.
Something about what you might have known about it, or a show maybe, or something. But
couldn't tell you.
could edit that part
I mean,
out.
I could not that stay in there. I like to make sure my audience knows exactly how smart and dumb I am. No, I was gonna say, like, I do know that it has to do with making sure that everyone is aware of everything. You're not, you know, I think that extends to, if I remember correctly, like if you don't understand the language, that means that you have to find someone that can actually tell them in the language, because otherwise it's null and void. Like, it's communicate. If I communicated you in Klingon and told you exactly what all your rights in Klingon, that doesn't help you at all. Not that I could do that. I wish I could, but but like, it doesn't help if you don't understand Klingon. You were not aware of your rights, and that means you can't act on those rights appropriately.
And I think in an interesting carve out that comes from kind of what you're talking about is, I believe there's a requirement for law enforcement, if there is a language barrier, to make sure that you still get those rights in whichever language that you speak. And we're a melting pot country, so I'm sure it happens on a regular basis. The cops have to, I'm thinking out loud, but probably to call a translator or use some sort of translation app to make sure someone who speaks Spanish, French, some other language, Chinese,
I think
Japanese.
I'm trying to remember where I got this from. Probably a show somewhere, but like that, there's like cards that you can actually, like, translated cards you can actually show somebody.
I have heard of that.
But that requires them to be able to read, and that's a hard one to prove if you don't speak that language. Like, you read you. Yeah. But that at least it would be a small step in the right direction of being able to, like, at least if they can read in that language, being able to show them that what their rights are. But no, I do like. There's a lot of things that go with the name, and I find those interesting, and that actually led me to. So I liked law as a junior high. I got into criminal law books and read a few of them, and one of my favorite ones was where a judge had to determine that anything can be labeled as a lethal weapon if it was used as for a killing blow. And one of these objects that I would love to see sometime, I'm sure it's probably not in a museum, but it was a tennis shoe that was used to kill a man who's on the ground, and he got kicked in his head so hard, like it lifted his head off 4 feet off the ground, I think is what it was. And they're like, well, it wasn't an attack with a deadly weapon. It's like, yes, it was. You killed him with it. And so they're like, yeah, anything technically can be a lethal weapon. We can't it can't go, well, that's not a gun, a knife, or a bow and arrow. Like, you can't have just a category. Well, lethal weapons versus non-lethal weapons, because if you kill a guy with it, it then immediately becomes a lethal weapon.
Well, and here's what's interesting about everything that we do is the whole, like, practice of law is interpretation and debate and persuasion.
Right.
When, as soon as you said that, my instinct was, if that's how that judge ruled, I didn't agree with it. I wouldn't think that the shoe is necessarily really the problem there. I would think it was like, and a lot of this is just the nuance of, like, a charging decision. But like, eventually, if you, like, killed someone, you killed them. And I would have thought the kicking and like more of the physical and human action there was the problem, not the shoe.
Sure. I mean, I don't think they're like, yeah, you didn't kill him, the shoe did, but like, implements of it. But again, this is a law book from probably quite some time ago, and I'm sure there's been changes to that case.
When you first brought it up, I was like imagining, like, are we talking like the guy beat him with a shoe? I'm like, could you actually kill someone with a flimsy little shoe? I don't know if you could.
But that wasn't the case. If water can cut through rock eventually, it would not be an easy, quick death, but but no, it was.
Let's look up real quick. Has anyone ever been killed by a shoe?
There's probably been a lot.
Steel toe boot would be easy, but a little shoe, a flip flop or something. I don't know about that. That might be impossible physically to kill someone with a flip flop.
That'd be interesting.
By striking them with it.
I was gonna say, depending on that would get into physics of velocity. If you have enough velocity, anything can. Because I mean, if you get hit water from high enough and it's a flat surface, that's a
Penny from
non-Newtonian.
the skyscraper.
Right, like you hit enough velocity and just about anything can be lethal. I mean, people can get diamonds with water lasers. You get enough power behind the water to cut through diamond. Like, well, that's pretty dense. Yeah, it is, but so is water when it's shot out at 40 billion psi.
So like a transition there is like, well, like it's a through line kind of is like the practice of law. Every little thing is different and can be interpreted and spun a different way, and that's like part of what makes it interesting is there is a creativity to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So well, I mean, I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, as I say, that I feel like that's a good thing to have as a lawyer is an understanding that it is not to put it into like oversimplified, but there is an art to law. It's not, I wouldn't call it an art form, but like there is some art to it of how it is presented. I mean, that's the whole point of being a lawyer is you are that barrier between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And the interpretation on a case by case basis, literally speaking, of how different scenarios interact with these things that are more or less immutable. Like you're going, well, actually, this shouldn't be how this interacts because this situation modifies this to actually mean that this shouldn't actually apply to this person this way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that the argumentative art form is one of the things that drew me, like I said, when I was in junior high, the argumentative side of being able to go, well, technically speaking, what you're looking at is this, but the law was created and designed to do this for everybody. And if you actually apply it to this person this way, what you're doing is actually nullifying the whole point of why we have this law in the first place.
There is a whole area of law and constitutional and criminal law that has to do with the application of Miranda rights and in certain ways that it has been abused or and there's a whole business of lawyers who deal with that whole type of issue in criminal law and constitutional law. So it's like any little nuance that you can add to it is a part of what we do. Like I was thinking of when you were saying that, the how you lay out the law in a storytelling way. Like typically, like a common case of mine is like something happens in a surgery, and you could very basically tell the story of like the surgical tool was, it could be like very basic and like clinical. Monotonous and clinical, or it could be like, who says I can't add in the facts of that was the 12th surgery that doctor had done that day, and the nursing staff was there was supposed to be like 5 nurses in the room, there was 2 because of it was a blizzard out that night, or so, like you can add in those little facts that the jury might then think, okay, I don't do that, but I can think of like that could be stressful, or maybe it didn't go as like matter of fact, black and white as I thought, and maybe I need to think and reflect on this more than I would have thought.
Putting context to it. It's being able to identify with person because, you might not have performed surgeries, but you've driven, and then you've driven in snow. You've driven in fog. You've driven in rain. Each one of those has a different effect on how you drive. And, you've woken up on a cloudy day. You've had those moments where you're like, yeah, this is just not it, and like having those context things where the judge might not care if you as a lawyer got good sleep last night, but they are more likely to consider, oh yeah, the couple was fighting last night. The spouse in question slept on the couch, was trying to get home quickly to apologize to their spouse. It was just a bad day outside. It was just like muggy all day. Everyone was exhausted. AC wasn't working. Then, with all that context, this is what happened. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I don't blame them. Versus, well, this person made this mistake. It's like, well, yeah, you shouldn't make mistakes. But it's like, hey, here's all the things that led up to this. This is why after all that, he also had to work a second shift. okay, now whose fault is this actually?
And then if you're the one that's on the receiving end of all that, you have to say, oh, well, okay, yes, life happens. I appreciate that. I understand that. But that guy that had that crazy life, well, also my client over here that he ran into and slammed into her car and destroyed, like, and she's like severely hurt, like that doesn't just go away because like he had a
Right.
tough day. Now my person is significantly injured and like did nothing wrong. Like,
Right.
it's like, don't forget about her, you know?
Right. But context is extremely important, and something that I talk about a lot is the question of why. Why is such an important question in my life, and I feel like it's a very core question because with the why question you can get so far into what's actually going on instead of actually asking the who, what, where, when. The why, in my opinion, is always the strongest question because why did this happen is can answer most of the other questions. Um, you know, it's core. But yeah, I absolutely love context, and like I said, that's kind of what got me into thinking about a long time ago becoming a lawyer is that being able to argument like the small tedious little things that can change all of it, and that power is something that I like, those argumentative things, but I don't like the paperwork. When I found out how much paperwork there was in being a lawyer, I kind of dropped that one. So
A lot
props to
more of
you.
lot more of the time is spent reviewing documentation and writing emails and picking up the phone
Yeah.
than the fun stuff. But it
Right.
makes it worth it when you
Right.
finally get your opportunity after years of reading the same 100 pages of hospital records or the client's testimony or whatever,
Yeah.
and you find and the law, and you finally get to be like, now's my time to star and
Right.
put on the story and see if like, okay, can 6 people or can 11 people or whatever the number is in that place, like, can they receive my story and can my story do enough to convince them that they should rule in our favor? That is the core of your job
Right.
as an attorney, in a trial at least.
Okay. So couple last questions. Um, are there questions that you wish people asked? Because people, you have your stereotypical things we kind of talked about that people kind of jump to or ask about. What are some things that you wish more people would like ask you about as a lawyer? Um,
That's one that I don't know if I'd be able to answer relatively quickly.
if you don't have an answer, that's okay. You don't have to.
I would think so. Again, that's how I kind of think is, so you said questions that I wish people would ask me.
Yeah. Or you could even phrase it as like modifying questions that people ask of you, questions you would rather answer than the whatever typical silly or stupid questions people ask.
I don't know if this really gets at what you're asking, but
Yeah.
the thing that comes to my head is so many times people think like, okay, I know a lawyer? What can they do for me? How can they help me? How can they help my friend?
Right.
Do you know someone who does this? Do you have any idea? A lot of times I get asked like at a holiday table or out in public when I tell someone I'm a lawyer or something, they'll be like, oh, I've got this thing that I am interested in what you think about. And it's like, well, that isn't what I do every day. Like
Right.
I might have someone I know that can help you with that,
Sure.
but like, I can think of so many examples, but I guess if you allow me, I have a
Sure.
hilarious story.
Yeah.
I guess the point is, so much at times I get asked like give me legal advice, and it's
Right.
like
Free legal advice. Yeah.
I don't free, and also like I might not know how to do that, or I
Right.
might not know somebody that does that,
Not
or I don't.
my specialty.
Or sometimes I have to tell people there's nothing to that. I'm sorry, but there's nothing to that. But so I've been asked so many times at family functions, public events, parties, conferences, you name it, and including in places that have nothing to do with where I'm at, about like, oh, you're a lawyer, so like blah 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 blah. One of the things I like to do is go to sporting events, and I think everyone knows me knows I'm a big racing fan, and sometimes when I go to races, I stay for the weekend, and it's a big whole hootenanny of a party scene. It's like stay out late, have campfires, go walk around, go drink, go do it's like a big party almost.
Right.
So one time I was at one of these races where I stayed and camped, and I was walking around and going and mingling around the campsites and stuff. And we got ourselves into this one party, and everyone was kind of just like in any party scene. It's like there's moments where like everyone gets into different, like you're talking to different people, and I'm like with this one guy who managed to, for some reason, I think he ended up taking all of his clothes off except his underwear in front of everyone because he was too hot and drunk. And
yes.
But this was in the time frame of our conversation where he was dealing with a criminal issue and wanted to pique my brain about helping him with his criminal problems and giving him advice. And he also, in the process, while I'm telling him what I think he should do, he decides, I'm super drunk and really hot right now in front of all my friends and your friends. Like, I'm just going to declothe myself, which he probably would not otherwise do. And I'm sitting here and I'm reflecting as he's doing this, like, what is he doing? And then I'm like, I'm giving this guy legal advice and he's like stripping. So it's either like not connecting or I don't even know how to. So
you're just bewildered.
And I'm just like, I'm in like a race. Like I'm thinking I'm like gonna hang out, have a party. You know, I'm not like thinking I'm getting some guy like who has a serious criminal problem. Like, and like, maybe it's like a context. Like this guy's going through a lot. Like he just like gets naked. You know, like WTF. But there's so often in times in life where I'm like, could you just like, yes, I'm a lawyer, but like, this isn't the time.
Right. No, it's something that a comedian once has made a very impressionable comment about it. Like, yeah, you wouldn't go up to your like, people do this like tax people and comedians a lot. He's like, tell me a joke. It's like, you don't go up to the like a bank person like, hey, can you fix this transaction for me really quick? Like, you know,
the nurse or the doctor. My family who are in the medical field, they get asked all the time, like, oh, you know, what do you think about my kids? You know, issue that's like sleep issue. Like, I don't know. I'm a heart doctor.
Right. Cardiologist. I couldn't tell you. Yeah. But yeah, no, I figure that's a question that gets asked a lot. There's a few professions out there that are like, hey, you do this. Anyway, so here, can you give me some free advice on a topic that you're not fully familiar with? Anyway, I'm going to use this as full, like, my lawyer told me this, so make sure it's accurate. Anyway, go.
It is I wouldn't say daily occurrence, but multiple times a week, does someone reach out to me on Facebook or texting or something and say, do you know a lawyer who does this? Or do you have any thoughts on this? Can you help me with this, X, Y, or Z? Just for context, like your aunt-in-law, when she had her issue in this house, was asking me my legal opinion on that.
It's something that's difficult to not do because you're like, I don't get me wrong. I get why it happens. I don't like whenever I have to do those things. I mean, my dad's a mechanic. My dad's an amazing guy, has fixed a lot of people's car for cost of parts at our house because they're like, oh, you're a mechanic. Hey, so my car exploded. Can you put it back together, please? And he's like, sure.
Yeah.
And if he was not such an amazing person, would probably have told a lot of people, no, go take it to a mechanic that can actually do the job. But like he's one of the people that just does it. But like I've seen how often that happens, and it's really hard to go like, hey, I'm having an issue. I know 3 people that are in this vague thing and go, well, I gotta start somewhere. Might as well start with somebody in the industry. You know?
And I want to make sure it's like, no, that it's not like a complaint.
Right.
And I don't think I've ever actually said like, I will not help you. At least get into the right, here's a number, here's a good firm, or here's what the law says. Do what you think you need to do. Go get an attorney or do X, Y, or Z. I almost always try to help. I've gone to court for my family in issues that I don't do on a daily basis, just because that's what, you're the lawyer of the family. You got to do something. I have mechanics in my family where I have them help me with my car. Right. It's a part of life. And it's just like,
but having from personal experience, it's a whole different thing when it's friends and family. Cause like I work in hospitality. Most of my adult life has been hospitality. I've helped a lot of my family get into the places I work at. I've gotten them rooms. I've found them discounts, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's when the random people, for me at least, it's the random people like, oh, can you just fix this for me? It's like, no.
Yeah, it's like some person I haven't talked to in 5 years. Like this happens once in a while. It's like someone from high school or something. It's like you didn't really like care enough to like talk to me on a regular basis, but you want to like that's where it's like
Right.
I will help them and not be a problem. But it's like, oh, I guess I'm just known as like, oh yeah, I knew a
Right.
lawyer from like high school or something like that. Let me
Yeah,
like see what they think.
I don't have anybody really to reach out to, but I vaguely, well, maybe. Yeah, no, it is one of those delicate things. Like everyone does it, and no one really loves that like question. But as long as it's in that like, there's this like circle that's like, okay, if you're in this circle, yeah, I'll do it for you. If you're out of the circle, I'm like, I discounts? No hotel rooms on discount. Sorry.
I'm
Go
learning on the
find.
fly here this connection that I now have.
Yeah, you should use it.
Yeah.
Audience not for you. But no, I mean, I literally have helped December's cousin recently with a room. I'm gonna be helping my brother with a room soon. It's just people like, hey, you know the industry. What's the best thing? Now, if someone asks for something that's outside of my brand when I'm working, tough luck.
Let me ask you this. This begs something I recently learned. So my husband was out of the state in a family situation and got a quick hotel room because his grandfather was in the hospital and it was unexpected and like it was like all hands on deck family situation.
Right.
And he got I'm more of the like good at that stuff than he is, I guess, like figuring out where do I stay and like figuring all this stuff out. And so I had given him a few options because we're like rewards members and stuff, including at the company that I think you work for.
Right.
So I recommended a couple of those hotels to him. And he told me that he's like, oh, we would have gotten the rate that is our regular rate, but I told them that I was here because I was visiting my family in the hospital here in town, and there's a special rate for the hospital visitors.
Okay, yeah.
And it was cheaper than, it was like a connection to the hospital that hotel had. And I'm like, is that a thing that you know?
So, weird that it interview turns around back on me, but yeah, I sure, like I can absolutely answer this. So there are places that do have specific rates for different things. So without being too specific, if you're staying at the hotel that I currently work at and you're part of a certain power company, your company can book directly with us and has a special rate that they get booked at. If you're part of the military or government work, there is a rate that, if available, can be applied. You can book under that rate.
Did know that one.
So
I did know that.
But what people don't understand sometimes is that there is a set number of those rates available to be applied to different rooms. So let's just pretend for a second like we have 5. I know this is not the number, but maybe say we have 5 military / government rates that we can give out for the second. Okay, and those out of those, 2 of those are for queen rooms, 3 of those are for king rooms. Once we run out of those, once people book those, we don't have that. The other thing is that those rates sometimes can flex too. So if we're at like 98% full and no one's booked under that government / military, but we can't be giving that same rate out when we're at 98% full, that rate's going to flex a little bit. So like there's days that like someone was asking about a employee discount for a certain date, and I'm like, it's not a great discount right now. It's nearly full price. And that's just because we don't have enough of that rate, or the occupancy is too high or something like that. But I will use this brief moment to tell you the best thing to do is always book direct. I heavily do not recommend third-party apps because, as someone that has to deal with these all the time, so I appreciate that you're recommending direct through the hotel app or whatever.
Oh yeah, I have them all. I don't do the. I won't. Yeah,
I
don't have those things.
Yeah.
I do right through the app for your. I guess we can't do like name brand.
Right.
Thanks,
I,
brother.
I'm,
But
I'm
you know
trying
what
to
I'm
avoid
talking
that,
about.
but like those third party apps, the difficult thing as someone that works at the hotel checking people in is those third party apps. You don't own those reservations.
Mm-hmm.
That's something people don't understand, and oftentimes those third party companies aren't contracted for what you booked. They are contracted for a room at your hotel. The suggestion is blank. So if you booked for, the penthouse, there you go. It's like, what's the word? Yeah, if you book a penthouse suite at a hotel through those third party apps, we're recommended to give you that. But if that third party decided to not listen to us when we book that room out and go, actually we don't have any of those available, they can they can still sell those. They can sell 4 of those even if we only have 1. They could decide to do that, and then they come up here and go, okay, so I'm here for the penthouse, and we have to go, sorry, it's not available. It hasn't been for 4 weeks. So, well, I just booked it today. It's like, that's great. You get our little dinky room here because that's all we have left. But also, if you want to change that reservation, you don't own the reservation, so you have to actually go through that third party, and that third party then has to talk to us and say, hey, as the owner of this reservation, we want to change it for them, which is just a nightmare. I've had to do it so many times for so many people where they're like, but can't you just change it? Like, we'd love to. We'd 100% love to, but if we do change it, we are at risk legally for ramifications of changing somebody else's reservation that you just have permission to enter.
Well, I had already sort of started to completely disregard those sources of doing that, and now I feel like I will never do it again.
I will say there's one, and I will name drop this, and that's AAA, because AAA does go through the actual correct avenues, so you do own the reservation through AAA. I will name drop that one because it is the only other third party option that I will tell people is worth it.
Well,
but anyway,
good plug for AAA. Yeah, I like to go right to the source because I'm a big consumer I'm a consumer who cares about like the reward stuff and like membership points and things like that, and like the communication that comes through. Like, I love to be able to like put into the app, hey, is there any chance I can do late registration or late checkout? Right. And typically, like, they tend to treat the people who are more like the rewards people and the points and all that. They, you know, even the silly thing, like if you're a member of a certain group, they give you a cookie when you walk in. Just
like,
you know what I mean? It's like that stuff matters to me.
We 100% like there are certain tiers in our program that like we see your name on there and we see your rewards tier and we go, okay, what upgrades can we possibly give them? Like there's quite a few times that like throughout the day I'll apologize to people, like, I'm sorry, usually we have a better upgrade for you than this, but unfortunately we're just fully booked. People have booked all the suites and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. And we oftentimes have gifts. We oftentimes have special perks and stuff like that. And like, and then people book through those third parties and they go, I'm also a member here. It's like, why do you book directly through us? Because we don't get any of that information through the third party, and then we have to input it, and then we're like, oh yeah, we can try and upgrade you now. But yeah, so big proponent of that. But yeah, I to get back to the topic, I have helped people with that, and like as long as you're in that circle, I'm like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. Hopefully it's okay price range wise what I can do, but okay, yeah, I figured that's an experience that you've had of just people like, hey. So okay, I think I'm gonna kind of wrap this up with my final question. You don't have to have a necessarily a fantastical answer for this, but my favorite question to ask is, if you could have a magic snap that just instantly made all your dreams come true as far as what we're talking about specifically, what would that look like? Would that be owning your own practice? Would that be president? Like, what does that look like for you?
I have sort of finally gotten to the point of life where within the professional world, I'm like, I think I like what I'm doing and I want to stay here. And I have the side quest of the military, which is also as a lawyer, and I want to progress in that. And I think I might stay long term in the military and with the state agency that I work for. But if we're talking like, perfect world, everything happens the way that The answer probably 10 years ago would have been in a political position. But unless things change, and this is not a certain statement about one side or the other or whatever you
Sure.
want to think about politics these days, but I think everyone can agree it's extremely divisive and it's
Right.
nothing like it used to be that I can think of at least. And it's like it's personal and things get everything that you've ever done gets scrutinized. Your family gets it's like oh my god,
Right.
that's not. If I could just be in like run for office, meet people, go to people's houses, shake their hands, and do the government stuff, like do the
Serve.
governing, I
Right.
would be cool
Serve.
with that. Yeah, but it's there's like all that other crap that I don't. Unless things ever get better, which who knows, but I don't think I want to do that. So I think the perfect world, if I could settle into something that I would love like 20 years from now, because you have to have a lot of experience, is a judge.
Judge.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
Sometimes you have to run for that too. So there's
Sure.
a political aim to that. I
Yeah.
actually voted today for judges in local elections. So
Yeah.
that would be, I think, the pinnacle of my
Okay.
path.
Gotcha. I like that. Do you have a specific like uh, uh, specialty that you want to be a judge over?
Well, in a perfect world, if again we're talking
Yeah, perfect world.
like,
The magic snap.
it would be
Yeah.
cool to be an appellate judge because I am so fascinated by appeals
Yeah.
practice.
Okay.
And the judges that oversee trials are kind of a lot of times focused on they have a clerk with them where that like knows the law very I'm going to make sure I say this right. So the judges of trials typically have to deal with a lot of the more on the fly stuff, like one that getting the jury there. That's a whole administrative thing. And then knowing the case and like being ready to handle objections and like making sure the conduct of the attorneys and the parties is appropriate. Whereas the law clerk for the judge is typically like the expert of the law, and it's like some weird like objection thing is like a legal dispute. The judge is usually like, oh, I gotta go talk to my clerk. Like, we're gonna pause the trial. Let's go back to the back room and like actually look at the law, like kind of thing. And that's important too. And I would be interested in doing that. And a trial is just as important as an appeal is. That's how you get to an appeal typically. Right. So, but an appeal is like the judges are more like the issues are the legal disputes and case law and like the reading the stories of the attorneys is called a brief. And getting to do the oral argument exchanges where you're like peppering the attorneys instead of like worrying about the panel of the juries and stuff. It seems like kind of like almost like a fun intellectual debate engagement compared to a trial is like entertaining a performance almost.
I'm not entertained. And do you not agree with me as well?
There is theatrics to the courtroom, and that's a big part of like the convincing the jury is like, okay, yeah, the case really is about did the proper drug get administered in the hospital that day? But like, let's make a huge story in Grey's Anatomy. It's like the trial versus like in an appeal, the disputes are like, okay, was the proper evidentiary thing done? It's kind of more nerdy.
Yeah, no, but like I can absolutely from this conversation, I can absolutely see you enjoying being a judge that just handles appeals and being able to get into that nitty gritty like of the law and how it actually applies and being able to go, well, I disagree with that.
And you can see that almost play out within the field and within people you work with of the people that enjoy more of the storytelling and the jury stuff versus like I feel like I care way more about like I will sit there and research a little issue to win a motion all day if I have to, because like I'm like that should decide this case, not the storytelling theatrical stuff. It's like this is a legal thing that I'm gonna research. This is what I did this morning. I spent like hours just researching. Like, let me make sure I don't leave no stone unturned. So, but like some people were like, I couldn't. I don't want to spend my time on that. I have a trial to prepare for.
Don't worry, I've got my play written out, so I'm good.
Yeah.
What laws did you add in there? I'm going to be complimenting a few of them and how good they look today.
Yep.
That's my law. Gotcha. Last question. I try to ask this of every guest. This has nothing to do with everything else we've been talking about. What is something that you're currently curious about?
Almost always changes. I can't really think of. I get off on these Wikipedia
Rabbit
tangents.
holes.
Now, you can say what you want about Wikipedia, but to me, I've always thought of it as an excellent resource for
Yeah.
just let me learn something that I like. You can sit there and like, because typically it is sourced, okay, and you can go to the
Right.
source where it comes
Yeah.
from. It's edited well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And a lot of times lately, I've been off on these tangents about like just other countries' histories, and
Hmm.
I guess that's kind of because I'm like a history and social studies nerd from the get go.
Yeah.
That's a through line to this whole
Yeah.
thing. But like just the other day, I was learning about. I also people I feel like know about me that I'm kind of a geography nerd too. So I was learning about this battle in northern Russia, and it like then was like, okay, well this was in these islands, and I'm like, where are those islands? So I looked up on the maps, and I'm like, oh, it's like a gigantic island that I had never heard of before. Like, what's the story there? And what like is it part of the was it part of the Soviet Union? And was it so like I've been off on these diatribes about like usually it's some kind of social studies connected thing, like history, geography, all that, and I'm just a total nerd for history and that.
Gotcha.
I feel like you don't get a lot of people that like if you polled a room like what was your thing in school or something, like I feel like social studies is not the normal one.
No, like it was. I almost made a comment earlier because you're like, yeah, the social studies nerd. I'm like, I feel like usually they're more, at least in pop culture and stuff. It's more leaning towards the political. Like, oh, it's the kid that wore the suit and tie today, and he's gonna get elected for class president. And
I was not that kid, and I know what you're talking about.
well, but like that, it when you're getting into that smaller niche, usually it's more of the political side versus the like the history and social studies and political science guy.
Yeah,
it's like,
and here's the thing is
less so.
remember that thing I said where I said I wish I could just do the governing.
Right.
That's what like the thought of actually doing public service and working as the mayor versus like how do you get to be the mayor? You run for office, you wear a nice suit, and you go to all these public events.
Rubbing elbows and kissing
and I'm like, I don't want to do any of that.
Right.
Even though I feel like I'm a social person, like it's just that's not like I want to actually do the job of like fixing the public, the sewers and like the roads.
This
and like,
kind of goes back to what I kind of pointed out earlier is like you like helping like the underdog. You like helping the people that can't help themselves. You want to be there and help, like to shorten it. You want to help, and being in a position that you actually can influence things that you can see logically need to be helped versus playing the political game, which I find refreshing, is oftentimes people want to get into politics because of power and stuff like that versus actually doing the job that's supposed to be done versus going, well, I have to be at the dinner, otherwise I'm going to lose the support of blanket. You're like, it's like, okay, but you could have been actually doing something over here, actually helping people. And I personally would like to get back to a country that have people in positions of power to help people. Like it's for the people.
Yeah, and if I could think of one of the things that comes to mind there is people care too much about the power of it all. I think I always think what they're doing that thing. We're dealing with it right now, and what's the most common news of the day right now? This government shutdown. I think like a lot of it is like power related when it's really impacting a lot of people's lives.
Right.
It's like, why do you care so much about getting reelected? Why you probably make more money in like the business that you ran or being the doctor or whatever the heck you were in your private life.
Right.
Like, why do you care that much about staying in some job in Washington D.C. or Albany or whatever it is? That you like you're choosing to pick that over your values and the people that you represent. I never understand that. If I would go to Congress for 2 years, one term, and just do something that mattered, I would gladly come back home to family and go back to work. And it's just like, why?
So there's weird hinged about things. I'm here for it though. Something that I've heard people talk about it, and I very much think that this ideal was very important, and that was that politics used to be a part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
Long time ago, you were a farmer that was on the city council. You were a congressman that had another job. So that meant that you were there to actually represent the people you were supposed to represent, versus in there for the power, and then in this circular, like, well, if I do this stuff, I can stay in power, and if I stay in power, then I can do this stuff, and then if I do this stuff, then I can stay. Like, it's just cyclical of just like, I'm in here, I'm kind of stuck because I owe favors to everybody, so I'm going to do that, but then nobody's happy with me, so I have to do other things for these other people so I can stay in power, because otherwise I'm going to lose it because I didn't do anything for anybody that actually cares.
The people that care about the power are those people in high school you said that you think is the politician because they wear the suit and they go to all the functions.
Right.
And they are the people pleaser, and like they want to be able to be like, oh, like some company in Syracuse cares about what I think, because and like will let me go to their cool functions, and like I get to like do things that matter to them, and like or like the local crowd of people, like it's like, oh, you're the local senator, like, oh, big deal, oh, they love that. I'm like, and I'd just rather do the stuff that's supposed to get the government working and help people, and like,
well, and I've always been
that's why I don't want to run probably ever again, unless
and
it changes.
It's something that I'm like, I feel like the people that actually do a good job for the people that they're representing are the people that would get reelected most often. And I know that's not necessarily always true, but like that's what I should be the case. And I feel like that recently we don't have a lot of options on a countrywide scale of people that we can go, yeah, they're doing a great job, reelect them. They're doing the least worst job, I guess we're stuck with them. And then that gets to that very divisive, very polarized thing of everyone's trying to defend their least worst candidate for everything, going, yeah, they're great. It's like, I would say that they're not, in your opinion, as bad as the other person. And that's really what you guys are arguing about, but you're arguing way too much conviction for the person you think is least worst.
I've had some of that makes me think of, if you cut through the BS, a lot of this people in this country are not that far apart in terms of their beliefs. Some of my favorite conversations I've ever had in a political or any type of debate that I've had with people, like over a campfire or at school in a dorm room, or doing a project with somebody that I had never met before. It's like, oh, you vote for the other side that I do 90% of the time or whatever. But like, I come into that with so many biases that I'm like, no, you aren't that kind of person. Like, because like, let's actually talk about it. Oh, you know what? I think we can actually come to a common ground on that. Like, remember I said a lot of people would probably, if they think, oh, taxpayer money is going to people getting lawyers or something. Like, no, if you actually think about it, like a lot of people are low income, and that doesn't mean they don't have legal problems, but should they just not get someone because they don't have enough money for it? There's probably a decent amount of people on either side of a political debate that would say, I think I'm okay with X number of my taxpayer dollars going to public lawyer funding.
Right. Yeah. No, it's something that actually makes it so I typically won't tell somebody like where I stand, like registered as or whatever, because if you leave that out and let them jump to whatever assumptions they are about how you talk, it's very interesting to see what people think of you, first off, without having that presumption or assumptions of whatever else characteristics come with X. And then having those political debates that go way past like which party you're associated with, and then you start like having those conversations, and then way deep into that conversation go, oh, by the way, you technically are should be in an opposing view of me, right? Based on political parties. Like, really? It's like, technically speaking, yes, but do you see how much we agree on about this? Is very eye-opening in my opinion. I like doing that sometimes. It's like just like not telling people where I am. Just wait till way too late to pull back up and get all flustered and frustrated and argumentative and be like, yeah, anyway, so I'm on the other side actually, but we agree on everything we've talked about. Is very fascinating. Yeah. Anything else that I missed? Anything else that needs to be talked about?
Been going for a while.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, John, for being on my show. I really do appreciate it. It's been a blast.
It's been cool. I've never done this before, so
First podcast.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you all for listening. I do appreciate it so much. First things first, I want to plug. I need to be doing a much better job of this. Is please go check out my Patreon. There is a free tier where you can kind of see what you're missing out on. You can buy individual icebreakers or advanced episodes or special episodes that are only released on Patreon. You can buy those individually, or you can subscribe, and that subscription will help me do this show as more of a main job versus a paid hobby. But we even teased a little bit about what the icebreaker was for John Pilat-Baxter. So check that out. Like I said, you'll be able to hear episodes before anybody else does. I post them there first. But I also have both Joel Rants and Car Talks that I post there. And then I also have a few other things here and there that I post in there exclusively. So please go check that out. If you enjoyed the episode and are thinking of someone else that might enjoy this episode, please send it to them. I do make a little bit off the ad, so please share this with somebody else. Tell them how much you like it. Find another episode to send them. Yeah. And a shout out to Milana Dodd, the graphics design artist. I'm going to leave that here because there's something special coming up soon. But I'm going to tease that just a little bit right here. So thank you so much for listening. And until next time, stay curious, y'all.